Hello and welcome to NOV Live. I'm Michael Gaines, host of the podcast NOV Today, and glad you are joining us today for another episode here where we are able to talk to technical experts on leading technology and innovations from NOV and how they can apply and not only help your business, but maybe you just want to learn more about some of the technology and have a Q&A with our guest. Well, you're in the right place. So glad you are joining us today. So before we jump in and talk to our guest, we want to go ahead and bring in Shelby Dumaine to talk about how you can not only get your question on, but also be a part of the conversation. Hey, Shelby, good to see you today.
Hey, Michael, it's great to see you as well. There's a couple different ways that everyone watching at home can get involved in this show. So the first way is by simply commenting. So if you're watching along on Facebook, LinkedIn, or YouTube, you can comment your question below. I am throughout the show. I'm in the comment section. I'm reading through everyone's comments. So I see you all commenting, and I love hearing from you. So if you have a question, you can comment it there, and we're going to get to as many of those as we can live on the show while we have our guest available. And then there are a few other ways you can contact us, say after the show, if you have maybe an idea for a future topic or a further question, or you just want to talk a little bit more about the topic today, you can do that. The first way is you can email us at socialmedia@nov.com. Just type out something quick and send it our way, and we read that every day as well. And then our one of our newer ways, and maybe my favorite, is our comment line, where you can call in and leave a voicemail, stay anonymous, or you can let us know your name and what you do, and we'd love to feature you on the show. But that number on the screen now is country code +1 346 223 4799. So you can give us a call there, and we really love hearing from our audience as much as possible. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. Yeah, absolutely. So I look forward to getting those comments as well, Shelby. And I know we can't start our conversation without one of our fun segments on the front side, right?
Absolutely. So now it's time for, just like every week on the show, the Rig Geek Question of the Week.
Rig Geek's Post of the Week.
All right, so later in the show, we're going to talk a little bit about a really new, exciting technology that's here and will be reducing emissions, saving fuel. So our question today, going along with that, is we're wondering if our rig geeks out there know how many kilos of CO2 can be reduced per liter of diesel. And we're going to be talking about a new, exciting product and a newly developed piece of technology that might help answer this question. But by the end of the show, if you think you know the answer, comment it, and we're going to reveal the answer at the end.
All right. Sounds good. Look forward to seeing those answers. So, as Shelby mentioned, we're talking about some really innovative technology that definitely has an impact in that space when we're talking about CO2 and other aspects. And so it looks like this conversation is applicable for many out there. I see that we have folks that are joining us from Norway. It looks like we have Algeria. Let's see, Brazil. Let's see, I think I saw Oman in there, as well as Argentina and many others. So excited for you all to be joining us and really appreciate you joining. And just a quick reminder as we jump into our conversation, if you have questions as we go along, feel free to put them in the comment section at any point. And as Shelby said, we'll try to get to your question as soon as we can in the program. So with that, I want to go ahead and introduce our guest. We have Andreas Karlsen. He is the project sales manager here at NOV, and glad you're joining us, Andreas. For those that aren't familiar, where are you joining us from today?
Thank you, Michael. I'm joining you from Norway, where I work as a project sales manager for NOV Rig Technologies.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us this afternoon. Hopefully we won't keep you too late in the afternoon, but definitely appreciate you joining us. So for those that may have seen the headline, we're talking about the HPU Ringline Eco Booster. So that's kind of our topic for today. So for those that might not know what that technology is or not be familiar, can you kind of help sort of place it sort of in the space? Where are we talking about, and what is this technology?
Yeah, so the Eco Booster for the HPU Ringline is a newly developed system that we have developed here in NOV. We have been challenged by operators, by drilling contractors to come up with solutions that help them reduce the emissions, save fuel, become more efficient, and the Eco Booster does just that. So the Eco Booster is a system that consists of accumulator bottles and a booster skid that helps boost the pressure on the ring line for the HPU. So when you have a high activity on your HPU ring line, the pressure can drop, and the booster system is designed so that it can help maintain a stable pressure and then avoid the peaks that often ends up burning a lot of fuel.
Okay. So I think one of the interesting things that folks appreciate is really kind of understanding not only a little bit of history, but also understanding kind of some of the development perspective, especially in this space. Are you able to talk about that at all?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, we're being pushed by the operators and the contractors to focus on developing this type of technology where we go into the consumers on the rig and see what we can do to optimize, to reduce the fuel consumption, and also to increase the efficiency of the rig. Operators challenge the drilling contractors, the drilling contractors challenge us, but we also have direct contact with the likes of Equinor, BP, Shell, and other big operators. So it's important for NOV to focus on where the industry wants us to focus, and that's what we try to do with this type of technology developments.
Yeah, no, and I know that you and the team certainly spend a lot of time not only together, in developing this, but also take into consideration, like you said, with operators and contractors, really trying to understand the needs that they have with respect to development and really some of the features and concepts here. So, for those that might be a little more familiar, are you able to kind of talk a little bit to some of the concepts or features that you feel are key differentiators with the HPU this Eco Booster specifically? Because I know that there are different approaches to how you can help customers and solve challenges in that way. What are some of the items that kind of come to mind for you?
Yeah, so for this specific system, we have sold one system for the Norwegian continental shelf already, and we believe that this technology will go wide going forward, and we have a big belief in that. So we have a bit of a technical animation, but we can pull that up, and we can look a little bit about on this system here. Of course, let's see how it here goes. As you can see here on the left side, you see the HPU, and you have a flow coming out of the HPU and into the ringline system. When the flow from the HPU increases, the pressure drop increases as well. And as you can see on the top left here, the pressure in the system itself remains very stable, and that is due to the fact that the booster accumulator skid, when the pressure drops occur in the out of the ring line or out of the HPU, the booster skid opens up and assists to maintain the pressure in this system here. So you can see the around 214 bars flat pressure in the ring line system, and that helps the equipment that operates on the hydraulic fluid also with a stable inflow of the flow at a stable pressure. So you can see here when the pressure drops from the HPU, the booster skid assists and keeps the pressure at a steady level. The number of bottles in this system, an example, could be 4 times 50 liters or 6 or 2 bottles. That will depend on the rig setup, but of course, we will review the rig specifics on that given rig when we are approached by customers and come up with a system that is a perfect match for that given rig.
Mm. Yeah, no, and I appreciate that graphic especially for someone that enjoys seeing kind of how all the pieces come together, but also it's kind of somewhat of a real-time kind of simulation. So that's really helpful.
It's a technical one, so
yeah, no, and I think that's great. I mean, especially for for folks that might not necessarily be as into the technical side. But that's why we have these conversations, right, to allow for that. So if you've just joined us, we are having a conversation today talking about the HPU Ringline Eco Booster here at NOV, and we are talking with Andreas Karlsen, who is joining us from Norway, and he is the project sales manager. So if you have any questions for him, feel free to put those in the comment section, whether you're watching us on LinkedIn, Facebook, or YouTube, and we'll be glad to try to get that question over during today's program. So, I know we've talked about the technology. I know that we've talked about not only where it's, some of the main applications and benefits, but wanted to maybe also talk a little more not only on the benefits, but the installation side of things. So I know that's without a doubt one of the questions I'm sure that you get. If it's not the first question, it's at least probably the second or third, which is how does that work? How does that look?
Yeah, so that's a very important question. We get challenged, of course, every time we try to introduce a new system for a rig that's on contract. It's very important for the drilling contractor to avoid downtime on that rig. So this system is pretty simple. When it goes out to the rig, we deliver the system on a skid that has both the accumulator bottles and the booster motors linked to it, and then we just tee it into the ring line itself. In some cases, we have been having a role in designing the ring line, but in most cases, and we have not taken part in the ring line itself. So that is typically something that we do together with the drilling contractor to find a suitable place to tee the system in. And you do not have to go into a yard, or you do not have to have downtown. You can do it between jobs, and it's quick and easy to integrate into the system. Right.
Yeah. So I mean, when you look at application here, do you find that you're seeing more applicability for kind of an offshore space, or do you find that there's some application on land, or both?
I would say both. Of course, on a big offshore unit, you have a big HPU. So of course, I mentioned at the start that you can reduce the fuel, and how do you do that? You by introducing this system into the drill floor, you have a system that will help do the peak shaving. So a large HPU consists of 6 pumps that typically run all the time, but at most operations you only need maybe 1 or 2 of the pumps. And then if you have a short period of time where you need extra flow, the booster system can provide that flow, and you don't have to start up more pumps to do that. So typically we can on a big system, offshore we can go from maybe 6 or 4 pumps down to 2 or 1 running at the same time, and in that way you don't have pumps running idle, or you don't have pumps just running for no reason, and that saves you a lot of fuel going over a longer period, and also avoids a lot of maintenance on the motors, on the pumps itself.
Right.
But for a land rig, of course we could look at a system, but I think it would be a smaller system than the one we have sold today. Maybe less accumulator bottles, but the technology is the same, and it will work in the same way for a land rig as for an offshore rig.
So I know that there are some folks that may have joined, and like I said, it's very rare to have anyone know everything about everything. And one of the terminology or piece of terminology that folks might hear are, of course, talking about the accumulator bottles that you referenced. So for those that aren't as familiar, can you talk about what are those and how do those play a role in the overall operation of the rig?
Yeah, so the accumulator bottles, it's pressurized. It's bottles that we pressurize. So we pre-charge these bottles to a given pressure. Typically on a ring line, you have 214 bars pressure or 207 depending on the rig, and we pre-charge these bottles to a higher pressure than the 214, so that when the pressure in the ring line drops below the 214, we have a system, a logic that opens the valve and boosts the ring line system with a higher pressurized accumulators into the ring line. So it's pressurized bottles.
Got it. Yeah. As simple as that, right?
Yep.
Yeah. No, that's good. Yeah, and that's really really helpful, and appreciate the insight. I know that there were a few questions that came in as you were talking, so wanted to see if we could get to some of those questions. Actually, I guess now as opposed to later. So we'll go ahead and bring in Shelby Domain to see if we can get some of those questions answered that we had come in. And as a quick reminder, if you have any other questions for Andreas, feel free to put those in.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So this first question comes from Calvin Holt, and he was asking, what problem are we fixing with this tool? And I think I might also add in a question I had for you in this one. I think it'll help. Can you talk a little bit when talking about the problem it's solving, about how much fuel rigs will save with this?
Yep, it's a good question, and maybe I haven't been clearer on that. It's the problem we were saving is that at many of the, depending on the rig contract, the drilling contractors or operators are paying fuel, and if you run equipment unnecessary, you burn more fuel than you need to do, and again you have more emissions than you need to do. So by introducing this system, you reduce the amount of fuel that you burn on a rig in operation, and also you reduce the emissions. Typically, of course, it depends on the motor and what pull it has in idle mode. But if you take a standard HPU offshore today and you reduce from running six pumps down to 2 pumps, we estimate somewhere around 500,000 liters of fuel a year by introducing this system on a rig that's on work.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Very interesting. Yeah, that's amazing. So then this next question comes from Gary on LinkedIn, and he was wondering what the impact is on the system for the hydraulic fluid. Excuse me.
Yeah. Well, I'm of course I'm not an hydraulic expert, but on the fluids themselves. But the system is designed together with our lead engineers that developed the HPUs that we use in today's market, and it's the same fluid that comes from the HPU itself that goes into the accumulator boost skid that is left is going back into the ring line just with a higher pressure to boost up the skid, the ring line pressure. So it's the same fluid. It comes from the same reservoir, and then it goes back to the same reservoir. So we recirculate the same fluid. So fluid-wise, it should be fine.
Mm-hmm. And we had another question too. Can you talk a little bit about kind of what trends we see, whether in social or with the government, around emissions and how this kind of comes into play?
Yeah, and this is of course very dependent on where you are in the world, but many places around the world now you see a governmental push on investing in technology that helps reduce the emissions. You see it in governmental funding to develop technology. You see it ripple down on the national oil companies, and they push it down towards the drilling contractors. And you see drilling contractors that have a very high focus and very good targets in reducing their carbon emissions, and that opens up a new market that NOV wants to take part in. And this is one technology that we develop. Of course, we have technology like the pole-blade hybrid system that also is a technology that's gone out to the Norwegian continental shelf and sort of helps us do the same, call it good work in the industry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and here comes, I think this might be our last question for today, came from Shane on Facebook. And he's wondering, are there any case studies that we have about this that maybe we could share later, or any examples that, showing a little bit more of the business case?
Yeah, for sure. We could definitely put something together, and I see it's Shane asking the question, and we're happy to come up with specific case studies for you as well, for him as well. We have done simulations with live data from rigs, where we have done an example pipe handling. We have stressed the system to try to provoke a higher flow on the system, and see how the accumulator booster skid system handles those peaks, because of course the peaks are the ones we want to take away. So I don't have a study that I can publish now, but I could run the same simulation with rig data from one of Shane's rigs or other drilling contractors.
Yeah.
No problem.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point. That even if you don't have something today, that's something that we can work on, like you said, from a simulation standpoint, using some of that data. So for those that might be interested in reaching out and asking Andreas to maybe engage in that type of approach, I think one of the ways you can do that, and hopefully I don't blow up your inbox here, Andreas, but one of the ways we can do that is by sending him an email, and we'll put that on the screen. So there it is right there, Andreas Karlsen at NOV.com. And believe me, for personal experience, he's a nice guy. So certainly I'm sure he welcomes your comments or any questions that you have on that. So that's very, very helpful. Good.
I agree with Michael. I think it's a very important thing to have a good dialogue with the customers and develop these type of technologies together with them, because they know their pains, and we are here to help to develop technologies to solve that.
And who better to have at the helm than you? So thanks, Andreas, for sharing your insight and having the conversation today. Thank you, Michael. All right, so we are going to transition over to answering the Rig Geek post of the week. And so for those that may have jumped in a little bit later, can you give us a question again, Shelby, and give us the long-awaited answer?
Absolutely. So that question, and maybe now the question has even more context that we've done the show, but how many kilos of CO2 can be reduced per liter of diesel? So that was the question, and the drum roll to the answer is we got 2.64 kilograms per liter.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, so that's kind of interesting, and I think that can add up to being a lot more as you add on more liters of diesel. Right.
No, that's really cool. Good. Well, thanks, Shelby, and thank you all for joining us today on this edition of NOV Live. We are always happy to get your comments, feedback, thoughts for future technologies to cover on the show, or any thoughts that you had, and you can easily send those to us. And that's going to be on the email on the screen, but that's socialmedia@nov.com. Again, as Shelby said, you can also give us a call. And if you want to leave a message, numbers on the screen there as well. But we are always glad to hear from you and enjoy having these conversations. So from all of us here at NOV, thanks so much for watching and for listening, and we'll talk to you later.